My name is Random Tuesday, and welcome to my Mermista from She-Ra and the Princesses of Power cosplay tutorial. If you need more information or resources, you can head over to my website, randomtuesday.com. The link is in the description below. There you'll find a write-up of this cosplay, along with lots of links to things that I reference or purchased for this cosplay, and a pattern that you can purchase, download, and print at home for this particular costume as well. So with that, don't make a big deal out of it. One of the biggest challenges for Mermista's cosplay was actually picking the fabric because they're pretty specific. You need a dark shade of blue and then two lighter shades of blue, or one light one and one even lighter one. I did a lot of digging and a lot of research. I ended up purchasing one of them from Joann's, which is the lightest color, and then the two teals came from Blue Moon Fabrics. You can find a link to those over on the write-up on my website, which is down in the description below. Now, to start with, for the top, I drafted just a really basic crop top pattern. I actually initially drafted it on paper, totally thought I did it right. I was like, yeah, this is a princess seam bodice. I was wrong. So I ended up with a crop top that wasn't quite right, but rather than wasting it, I turned that into the actual pattern that I used. So I went over it, I drew on one Sharpie, and this is a technique that you can use for a lot of different things. Make a really basic mock-up of like a princess seam bodice, and then draw the actual seam lines that you want on it, cut it apart, and lay them flat. So I ended up with my new pieces, which you can see are not quite the same as the old pieces. Once you've got your pieces, to assemble it, you start by sewing the front to the back at the side seams, then you sew in that bottom weird curve sine wave swoopy, then you sew it together at the shoulder seams, and that gives you a whole front and back piece. You'll want to put the collar in, and the collar is just like a short little stand-up collar, which has some gold trim on it. Now, for all of the gold, I did this in the same way that I did my She-Ra one, if you've watched that video, is I ironed Wonder Under to the underside of it, then cut the gold out, and then iron it to the fabric, and then top stitch it all in place. And the top stitching gives you a nice, really clean edge to it and keeps everything nice and secure, and the Wonder Under both attaches it and also stabilizes it while you're sewing it in place. So after you put the collar in, then you're going to put a zipper into the center back. And it doesn't need to go all the way down because it's so stretchy you can mostly pull it on over your head, but people's heads are bigger than the collar, so you'll want a zipper in order to get the collar on and off. Now, because the zipper is going to go through two different colors, you can take your pick of which one you want it to match more and also what type of color zipper you can find. Next up are the pauldrons. Now, for the base of the pauldrons are made out of thin 2mm EVA foam because I didn't want them particularly thick or chunky. They're just kind of a 3-piece pauldron pattern. You can either draft it yourself by covering your shoulder in saran wrap and then drawing the lines on it where you want them to be or cut it apart until it's flat. This is also included in the pattern as well if you don't want to draft it yourself. In order to stabilize it, because it is such thin EVA foam, I did add some center strips here. Actually, to be honest, I didn't make the foam part. Steph made them because she's great. So she added the foam strips on the inside just to stabilize those seams, but it still keeps it nice and thin along the edges, so it's only using 2mm foam for most of it. Then to get the decoration, and I wanted these to be the same color because in the reference images they are the same color as the collar, I used the same fabric as the collar and kind of basically outlined the shape of the pauldron and then cut that shape of fabric out and then edged it with some gold. I made 2 of those and then actually sewed them together right sides together. So like you couldn't get in them, but then you cut a big hole in the back one and slip it over the pauldron so that it stretches to fit. I used hot glue around the edges of the pauldron to keep it in place and then hot glued it all on the inside here to kind of keep it all secure. And lastly, there is a piece of Velcro, and Velcro doesn't glue well to EVA foam, so you sew the Velcro to fabric and then glue the fabric to the foam, which does stick very well. And that corresponds to a piece of Velcro on the corner of the shirt, and then they just Velcro together and it stays on really nice and secure. For the pants, I started with a very basic legging pattern that I had on hand. You want to find for this a legging pattern that does not have a side seam, because what you're actually going to do is add a bunch of other seams. So I took each leg and then I split it into thirds, cut it into 3 parts, and those became the 3 colors. The inner one, the middle piece, is that light blue, and then the two outer pieces, or the ones that are going to become the inside of the leg, the inseam, those are the darker teal. So you end up with 4 pieces of teal of the dark color and 2 pieces of the light color. So then, after I cut each 3 piece out, I assembled each leg together, and you just sew them the way you sew a normal pair of leggings. After that, to do the waistband, I wanted it to be snug, so I didn't want to just rely on the elasticity of the pants. I actually wanted to add some elastic in, so like when Steph bent over, it didn't, there wasn't too much on display. So to sew the elastic in, I serged it, because serging is a stretch stitch, to the outer edge. The elastic is on the inside. And then when you fold it over into the inside, it both hides the elastic on the inside and also is still attached. And then I ironed on the panel pieces. So there's a panel piece first in the front, one singular circle in the front, and then there's these side panels that are curved. And you'll notice, and I noticed this on the reference images, they meet, here we go, this is the center. They meet in just a center point in the middle, and there isn't actually another curved piece on the back. It tricked me, I thought there was gonna be. So first you stitch on the front semicircle, and then you stitch on the side ones. And as long as you're using a stretch stitch, it should totally be fine. Lastly, I just hemmed the bottom edges of everything by folding them over and top stitching them. For Mermista's shoes, I actually took an old pair of sneakers that I was gonna get rid of, so I figured I may as well like glue new fabric onto them and breathe some fresh life into them. So I essentially covered this in material, which was felt, and then drew a bunch of lines on it to be like, okay, I think this is where my pieces are going to be. And if you don't want to do that, there's a pattern for this, although you might need to adjust it for whatever size shoe you have. But essentially it consists of one sort of top piece for the toe, and then this wrap piece around here that's in a different blue. And then you kind of have this top like piece that I stuffed just a little bit that is sewn over the top here, and then the 2 pieces for the tongue. Now, technically speaking, if you look at the reference images, there's actually some other different colored fabrics and materials, I guess fabrics and materials used for it. So if you want, you can add more variety than this, but I liked bringing in some of the consistency in order to match it with the rest of the outfit. So it uses the same gold, which I don't think I've mentioned yet, is the Yaya Han pleather gold from Joann's. And then these were the ones that I got from Blue Moon Fabrics. And then this was just a scrap of blue that I had on hand. I actually think this is from my Urbosa skirt. After I assembled all of these pieces together, so stitched the top to the sides and the sides together and the tongue into the top, and you'll notice you want to line the tongue as well because obviously you can see the lining. I then literally like stretched it over the top and just like glued it directly to the shoe using E6000 and leaving just this top part unglued. You can see my fingers wiggling in there. So we shouldn't have to worry about lacing it. I actually replaced the laces with elastic, so they essentially become like slip-on shoes. And she just slips her foot into them, and then she's wearing shoes. If you want to get super extra, you could also paint the bottom of them, because as I saw in that one episode with Mermista, there's a design on the bottom. I did not do that. For Mermista's hair, this glorious hair, Steph actually wore her hair loose a couple of times, but we also purchased a wig. This just came directly from Amazon. It's literally a Mermista wig. If you search for it, you'll find it. There's also a link in the write-up. It's pretty good. I like it. It has this nice gradient from the dark to the light. I did very little styling in it because it's already got a center part, which is how Mermista's hair goes. All I really did is once it was on Steph, I swoop it to the side, and then I use a couple of hair ties to tie it up here. I did some back combing in this poof to make it poof more, lots of hairspray and back combing, and then did another tie here. For the bracers, they are basically just like a tube that curls around your arm with a slight curve to account for the fact that your arm is curved. I believe Mermista Cosplay has some great bracer patterns, arm armor patterns, if you're looking for a larger selection of those. I also have a variant on this pattern in the cosplay pattern that you can purchase. They are made out of 3 sections of EVA foam, that same 2mm EVA foam, each of them individually painstakingly wrapped in this gold pleather, the Yaya Han gold pleather from Joann's. On one end, we left kind of this nice little tail of the fabric so that I could stitch a piece of Velcro to it. And on the other side, it was tucked under to make it a nice clean edge. And I actually just sewed this strip of Velcro directly to it through the EVA foam, in fact. So it just curls around your arm and then Velcros closed in place. On the inside, to keep all three pieces together, there's just another strip of EVA foam that kind of connects all three pieces, allowing them to each have this sort of very raised texture to them that kind of emulates the design that you can see in the show. Thank you so much for watching my Mermista cosplay tutorial. If you need more information or resources, in the description below is a link to my website, randomtuesday.com. There you'll find a write-up with this cosplay, including direct links to things that I've referenced in this video, like the fabric and the pattern that you can get. You can also watch me live on twitch.tv/randomtuesday, where I'm often working on cosplay, and I'm always happy to answer any questions that I can at least attempt to answer that you have for me. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button to get those sweet notifications for when I have a new video out. And lastly, but certainly not leastly, thank you to each and every one of my patrons over on Patreon. Your support there helps make this video and cosplays like this a reality. If you would like to support me in creating more content, any monthly amount is truly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching.